I'll answer the question. You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
Welcome back to the channel. This is Wes, and today I'm going to give you some information on Marvel's next big 2020 event, Empyre. First, I'm going to read a couple of articles from CBR.com just laying out the information that we know, which is limited. Then I'm going to lay out 3 obstacles I believe Marvel's Empyre event is going to have to overcome to be a success. And finally, I'll give some closing thoughts on what I think is actually going to happen with the event. So both of these articles are from CBR.com from Sam Stone, and the first one is about the Prelude. In Marvel's advanced solicitations information for titles scheduled to go on sale March 2020, the preview for Road to Empyre, the Kree Skrull War, #1 by Robbie, Thompson, and Javier Rodriguez, teases the interstellar scope of a renewed conflict at the heart of the Marvel Universe. The one-shot prologue hints the origins of the long-standing conflict between the Kree and Skrulls will be revealed, with the main characters from Thompson's preview, Meet the Skrulls miniseries, playing a central role. Next is the article about the actual event itself. Spinning directly out of the pages of the recent oversized special one-shot issue, incoming #1 is Marvel Comics' big 2020 comic book crossover event, Empyre. Written by Al Ewing and Dan Slott and illustrated by Valerio Schiti, the storyline builds off the long-standing conflict between the Kree and Skrull empires, with Earth caught in the crossfire. While the war intensifies, the Avengers and Fantastic Four find themselves taking to the stars as they become embroiled in the conflict. Marvel Comics has released a trailer for the crossover, with Marvel Editor-in-Chief C.B. Cebulski and Executive Editor Tom Brevoort teasing the upcoming story as the publisher's biggest cosmic epic yet, while showcasing preview art. Many of you may have noticed in 2019, Marvel Comics under C.B. Cebulski took a different approach to some of these event comics, starting with Marvel Comics #1000, the fake milestone issue that they basically made up as a cash grab. They basically went out and crammed as many creative teams and Marvel characters into one series as possible to generate interest in the book. And initially, it worked really well. Marvel Comics 1000 sold exceptionally well. Now, I personally wasn't very impressed with the comic book, but if you go and look at comicbookroundup.com and you go and look at the critic scores and the reader scores, they're about the same. They're right about that 8 range, which is a B, B+, something like that. So while I didn't personally like the concept or execution, there's a couple things in there that I do like, but let's be honest, most of it was just filler. Marvel Comics readers were actually happy with the comic. So they doubled down and came back with Marvel Comics 1001, and if you go and you look at the audience scores and the critic scores for that, they dropped a lot. Readers and critics weren't happy with Marvel Comics 1001 and the way Marvel tried to capitalize on the success of Marvel Comics 1000. Intermingled in all the one-shot comics in Marvel Comics 1000 was an overarching story written by, you guessed it, Al Ewing. He brought back the Eternity Mask, and those characters and events rolled over into Incoming, which was released as an event book in December 2019. Now, here on the channel, I did tell everybody that this wasn't actually an event comic. It was a one-shot preview book, the kind of comic that in the past Marvel would have either given away as free or maybe charged $2 or $3, but for Incoming, they charged a whopping $10 for an actual preview book. I can't believe that people bought it. I warned people on the channel, but we're not a huge channel here. I don't have enough reach, and apparently not enough other creators were out there warning people that Marvel Incoming was actually a $10 preview comic, and people did not respond well to this at all, despite the lame murder mystery that the comic was marketed on and why it was called an event, and I'm pretty certain that was all courtesy of Al Ewing himself. So the reason this is the first obstacle to overcome is because you're seeing diminishing returns. Marvel Comics 1000, huge success, people liked it. I don't know why, but they enjoyed the comic book. When Marvel Comics 1001 came out, people started souring on the idea and the concept, realizing it was just a cash grab. And then we get to Incoming, the comic that's actually leading directly into Empyre, and most readers didn't realize that Marvel Comics were fleecing them for $10 for a preview comic that should have been for free, or maybe $2 or $3. So we're seeing enthusiasm for the concept of 50 billion creators on one 80-page comic for the mere price of $10, and it culminates with a very disappointing Incoming, which directly ties into Empyre. It's left a bad taste in readers' mouth. And I do think in the end, Marvel is going to regret tying Empyre into Incoming and not just doing a Prelude book on its own. So the second hurdle that Marvel really has to overcome is event fatigue. Listen to this. Secret Warps, Acts of Evil, Annihilation Scourge, Incoming, Age of X-Man, Wolverine Infinity Watch, House of X, Powers of 10, Absolute Carnage, 2099, War of the Realms. Marvel Comics had 10 events in 2019 alone. That is far too many for a 12-month period. And the worst part is, most of them weren't very good. Age of X-Man was egregiously bad. The fact that C.B. Cebulski didn't fire Jordan White the minute he pitched that idea tells you all you need to know about the current direction and leadership of Marvel Comics. They are all about cash grabs. They don't care about quality right now. You know, and some people might say War of the Realms is okay. I thought it was lackluster. For the most part, readers aren't enjoying the Spider-Man related 2099 event. It didn't have the soul of the original 2099, and it felt like a straight cash grab because that's what it was. And the majority of those events are so bland and vanilla. I mean, who read Secret Warps? The only person I know is Stax, and that guy reads everything Marvel. By my count, only 2 of Marvel's 2019 events were even good. And they weren't just good, they were either great or phenomenal. Absolute Carnage is a great story. It should have been a Venom story, but they had to cash grab on that and make that an event. But it was really fun and definitely worth my time and money, even if I was disappointed to find out in the end it was just a prelude to the 2020 Venom event. House of X and Powers of 10 is the most important comic book of 2019. The sales of Hawks and Pox and Absolute Carnage actually pushed the industry into the green and saved it from another year of sales contraction. And that doesn't even mention the fact that Jonathan Hickman's execution along with R.B. Silva and Pepe Larraz and Marte Gracia was excellent. It's one of the best X-Men stories you'll ever read. It was an instant classic and something I actually thought was going to be a harbinger of things to come for Marvel in 2020. But it does feel like I was a bit naive in that. It doesn't feel like Marvel are learning from House of X and Powers of 10 that quality is king. It appears they believe that shipping 12 issues of a marquee IP in successive weeks and providing quantity was the reason that House of X Powers of 10 was successful, and it had nothing to do with Jonathan Hickman's phenomenal story and the excellent work from the art team. And a lot of Marvel readers, including myself, are worn out by events. It's event after event after event. We know we've already got Outlaws coming in 2020. We know that there's going to be a new event with Noel returning to Earth. That's guaranteed to happen. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's another X-Men event in 2020 as well. And you know there's probably going to be at least 2 Spider-Man events because I already forgot about Spider-Geddon, which I believe was in 2019 as well, and didn't even talk about that one. Event fatigue is real. C.B. Cebulski and the Legion of Doofuses are going to have to convince readers that this isn't just another cash grab, that it's going to be worth their time and money. The last obstacle is the creative team. Now, Al Ewing at the beginning of 2019 was a severely hot writer. Immortal Hulk went from middling sales to perennial bestseller in a matter of months. It was lauded by the comic industry, from critics to readers alike. It was one of the best, if not the very best, comic in the entire industry at the beginning of 2019. But Immortal Hulk has definitely lost steam. Immortal Hulk 25, the big milestone, because 25 issues is a milestone at Marvel Comics now, so they can charge you $8, was one of the most off-putting comics I've ever read. Not because it was bad, because I think on its own it was actually kind of good, but because it was not an Immortal Hulk comic. It was some weird Hulk in the Cosmos comic. It did not fit the tone of the Immortal Hulk series that came before it. Yes, it did tie into it, but the art and the tone and the dialogue of the book did not fit the series. It was so out of place. It was a huge turnoff. I immediately stopped reading the book at that issue, and I ain't coming back because we've all read the stories. We've all seen the screenshots of the pages. Al Ewing has now taken Immortal Hulk and turned it into his vehicle to spread his anti-capitalism message, which I find hilarious. The hypocrisy is not lost on me, folks. You have Marvel Comics with their overpriced comic books and all their cash grabs, their fake $10 milestone books, charging $10 for preview comics, both of which Al Ewing was the key creator on those books, but he's an anti-capitalist, even though he and Marvel Comics are screwing readers over left and right, charging obscene amounts of money for comics that aren't worth the price, at least in my opinion. And I know there are a lot of readers out there that agree with me that it is hypocritical and actually pretty funny. But at least Al Ewing has had a hit book lately. Dan Slott hasn't had a hit book in years. Yes, the Amazing Spider-Man sales were pretty okay because it was Amazing Spider-Man. His ASM run was loathed by large swaths of readers. He drove people away with his terrible take on Peter Parker. And when that was over and they gave it to Nick Spencer, he got moved over to relaunch Tony Stark Iron Man. We hadn't had Tony Stark Iron Man as an actual character in Marvel Comics for years. He was just a hologram that was basically mentoring Riri Williams after she stole his technology. His Tony Stark Iron Man is a total bust. Paley and I just talked about it in our 5 Worst Comics series of 2019 video. I don't want to get too into the weeds on Dan Slott and why he's a failure right now. Most comic readers know that Dan Slott's name on a cover means don't read, and that definitely goes for the Fantastic Four. The first family of Marvel Comics hadn't had their own series in a very long time. In years, people have been frothing at the mouth for Fantastic Four to come back. They didn't put Chip Zdarsky on the series after his fabulous Marvel 2-in-1 series. They threw it back to Dan Slott, who so far passed his sell-by date, it's not even funny. And guess what? We have an uninspired Fantastic Four with pretty okay sales, but they would be much better if there was an actual quality writer on there. So I do think the creative team is another hurdle. Al Ewing's reputation took a dip in late 2019 due to the direction of Immortal Hulk, his involvement in Incoming, as well as Marvel Comics 1000 and 1001. Not to mention, if you have read Al Ewing's Ultimates run, his take on the Marvel comic universe isn't exactly the most accessible for normal readers. So I do believe his take on the Skrull War will be divisive among fans because not all of them are going to get it. And Dan Slott has not been a relevant creator in the industry, let alone at Marvel Comics, for years now. Those are the 3 hurdles I think Al Ewing, Dan Slott, and Marvel leadership have to overcome when they launch Empyre. The association with Incoming and the bad vibes that have flown from Marvel Comics 1000 to 1001 to Incoming. People's enthusiasm for that format died quickly. Event fatigue. They had 10 or 11 events in 2019 that I can remember. They were probably even more. And finally, I do think the creative team isn't the hottest in the industry right now. Do I think Empyre will succeed? It doesn't look like there's a lot of enthusiasm right now. I've talked to some of my LCS friends, owners and managers, people who talk to customers and do pull lists, and not many people are putting this on their list right now. Not a lot of enthusiasm for Empyre, but they do have plenty of time to gin it up. Plus, it does have Fantastic Four. It does have Avengers on it. You have 2 big team books. Although Avengers isn't really a hot title right now, and neither is Fantastic Four, thanks to Dan Slott. But you do have 2 very well-known Marvel Comics teams in one event going out into space. Kree and Skrulls, it could be interesting. I'm personally not excited, but I do hope Marvel Comics, CB Cebulski, and the Legion of Doofuses put something out there to get people excited, to get me excited, and wanting to read Empyre when it launches in 2020. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.